Look at this photograph. 3 children, a studio portrait, late 1800s based on the card mount style and clothing. Let me describe what we're seeing. 2 boys standing, 1 girl sitting. The boy on the left wears a patterned outfit, some kind of tunic or jacket with distinctive oval cutouts running down the front. Light-colored fabric underneath shows through. The girl in the center sits on a simple wooden chair. She's wearing a light-colored dress with a checkered or gingham bodice. She's holding what appears to be a doll or cloth object. Her expression is serious, direct. The boy on the right stands tallest. Dark suit, white collar. His hand rests on the back of the chair. He looks slightly older than the others, maybe 10 or 11 years old. All 3 children are looking at the camera. Their faces are solemn, not smiling, which was typical for photographs of this era due to long exposure times. Behind them, a plain studio backdrop. No decoration, no context. This is a formal portrait, carefully arranged, professionally taken, the kind of photograph families commissioned to mark an occasion or preserve a memory. But here's what's striking. There are no parents in this photograph, no adults at all, just 3 children, and no explanation of why. In the mid to late 1800s, studio photography was expensive, not prohibitively so for middle-class families, but significant enough that you didn't do it casually. You went to a photographer's studio for specific reasons: to document a marriage, to commemorate a new baby, to create a family portrait that would hang in the parlor or be sent to distant relatives. These weren't spontaneous images. They were formal declarations of family structure. And family structure in Victorian America had a very specific visual grammar. Parents, usually the father and mother, positioned centrally or elevated. Children arranged around them, often by age. Everyone dressed in their best clothing. The photograph reinforced social hierarchies and familial bonds. It said, "This is our family. This is how we want to be remembered." But this photograph doesn't follow that pattern. 3 children, no adults. That alone tells us something happened here, something that required documentation but not explanation. There are specific circumstances in which children were photographed alone in the 1800s. Orphanages. Many institutions photographed children in their care, sometimes to document their arrival, sometimes to circulate images to potential adoptive families. Foster or kinship care. Children being raised by relatives other than their parents were sometimes photographed separately, especially if the arrangement was temporary or informal. Separation due to illness or death. If parents died or were incapacitated, children might be photographed alone while their custody was being determined. Immigration and displacement. Children who arrived in America without parents, either sent ahead by families or orphaned during passage, were often documented separately. In all of these cases, the absence of parents wasn't accidental. It was the point. These photographs documented children in transition, children whose family structure was uncertain, children who belonged to institutions, not households.
But let's talk about how children like this were documented beyond photographs. In the late 1800s, record-keeping for children outside traditional family structures was fragmented. Orphanages kept ledgers, names, ages, arrival dates, sometimes the circumstances that brought them there. Courts maintained custody records, legal guardianship transfers, adoption proceedings, indenture agreements, where children were placed with families as laborers. Census records listed children by household, but if they were in institutions or moving between homes, their presence could be inconsistent. Charitable organizations that placed children with families kept their own files, often separate from official government records. The result was a patchwork. A child might appear in an orphanage ledger for 2 years, then vanish from documentation entirely when placed with a family informally. Or they might show up in a census under a foster family's name with no indication they weren't biological children. Or they might be listed in court records for custody transfer, but with minimal biographical detail. The system documented movement, children entering and leaving care. It didn't necessarily document identity, who these children actually were, what happened to them long-term, whether the placement succeeded or failed. Look at how these children are arranged. The girl sits, the two boys stand. That's conventional for sibling portraits of this era. Younger children often sat, older ones stood. But notice the spacing. The boy on the left and the girl in the center are close together. Their positioning suggests connection. The boy on the right is slightly more separate, his hand on the chair, his posture upright and formal. He looks older, more composed. In Victorian portrait conventions, this kind of positioning could indicate hierarchy, the oldest child placed slightly apart, signaling responsibility or authority. Or it could indicate something else, that these three children, while photographed together, weren't necessarily all siblings. Mixed sibling groups were common in institutional care. Orphanages and foster systems often grouped children by age or circumstance, not by blood relation. So a photograph like this might show 3 biological siblings after their parents' death, 2 siblings plus an unrelated child placed together, or 3 unrelated children being documented as a group. The photograph doesn't tell us which, it just shows us the arrangement. The children's clothing is another clue, though not a definitive one. The boy on the left wears a distinctive patterned outfit. It's unusual, more decorative than typical everyday clothing for boys in this era. The girl's dress is simpler but well-made, gingham bodice, clean lines. The boy on the right wears a formal dark suit, standard middle-class attire for formal occasions. None of them look impoverished, but they also don't look uniformly dressed, which you might expect if this were a planned family portrait where parents coordinated everyone's outfits. This could mean they're wearing their own clothing, brought from home or provided by family before placement. They're wearing institutional clothing, provided by an orphanage or charitable organization, drawn from donated items of varying styles, or they're dressed for the photograph specifically, possibly borrowed outfits intended to make them look presentable for documentation or adoption purposes. All of these are plausible. None can be confirmed from the image alone.
Here's where the documentation fails. This photograph exists in archives. It's been preserved, digitized, cataloged. But when you look for the accompanying information, you find approximate date 1870s to 1890s based on photographic style and clothing, photographer possibly identifiable by card mount style but no definitive attribution, subjects listed as 3 unidentified children or sometimes siblings, names unknown, context none recorded, no names, no location, no explanation of why they were photographed together, and crucially, no follow-up. You cannot trace what happened to these children. You cannot determine if they were adopted, fostered long-term, aged out of institutional care, or died young. The photograph was taken, filed, preserved. But the children themselves? They disappear from the documentary record after this moment. This wasn't accidental. Photographs of children in institutional care were often deliberately vague. There were several reasons: privacy concerns, or what institutions understood as privacy. If children were orphaned due to scandalous circumstances, parental crime, suicide, abandonment, institutions sometimes avoided recording details to protect the children from stigma. Adoption facilitation. Children being prepared for adoption were sometimes photographed with minimal biographical information so that prospective parents could project their own narratives onto them. Institutional efficiency. Orphanages and foster systems processed large numbers of children. Detailed record-keeping was seen as unnecessary once children were placed. Legal ambiguity. Some placements weren't formal adoptions, but informal arrangements. Children were given to families without legal paperwork, making long-term tracking impossible. The result is exactly what we see here, a photograph that documents the children existed, but no system that documents what happened to them. Let's talk about the boy on the right. He stands tallest, looks oldest. His posture is noticeably more formal than the other two. In institutional settings, older children were often given responsibility for younger ones. Orphanages used older boys and girls as caretakers, helping with younger children's daily needs, supervising activities, sometimes even disciplining them. This wasn't seen as exploitative, it was considered practical and character building. But it meant older children carried disproportionate responsibility. They weren't just residents of institutions, they were unpaid labor. In photographs, this sometimes shows up in positioning. The older child placed slightly apart, more formally posed, hand on the chair, a gesture of authority or protection. Is that what we're seeing here? Maybe. Or maybe he's just the oldest sibling, photographed with his younger brother and sister. Or maybe he's unrelated to them entirely, grouped together for administrative convenience. The photograph doesn't say.
The girl in the center is holding something. It looks like a doll or cloth object, possibly a handkerchief or small blanket. In Victorian child photography, objects like dolls served multiple purposes. Comfort. Children being photographed often found the studio intimidating. Giving them a familiar object helped them sit still. Convention. Girls, in particular, were often photographed with dolls as symbols of domesticity and future motherhood. Distraction. It gave restless children something to hold on to during long exposure times. But for children in institutional care, objects like this could mean something else. If this girl was orphaned or separated from family, the doll might be one of the few possessions she had. Something carried from her previous life, something that represented continuity amid disruption. Or it might have been provided by the photographer, a prop with no personal meaning. We can't know, but her grip on it is tight, deliberate. Whether it mattered to her or not, she's holding it like it does. When children disappear from institutional documentation, several things could have happened. Successful placement. They were adopted or fostered into families, took on new surnames, and integrated into households where they were counted as biological children in future census records. Informal arrangements. They were taken in by relatives or neighbors without legal documentation. They lived full lives, but under names or in situations that don't connect back to their institutional records. Early death. Mortality rates for children in institutional care were significantly higher than for children in stable homes. Disease, malnutrition, accidents. Many children didn't survive to adulthood. Aging out. They left institutional care at adolescence, moved into work or marriage, and their earlier years as wards became irrelevant to their adult identities. Geographic displacement. They were sent west on orphan trains, placed in distant communities, and lost connection to their origins entirely. All of these outcomes were common. None leave clear trails. So when you find a photograph like this with no follow-up documentation, you're looking at one of several possibilities and no way to determine which. 3 children, 1 chair, no adults, no context, no explanation. When you first looked at this, you might have seen a simple family portrait, 3 siblings maybe, dressed up for a photograph. But now you see children in transition. Children whose family structure was broken or uncertain. Children who were documented not because they were loved, but because they were in the system. And the system needed to track them, at least for a moment. Long enough to take a photograph, not long enough to remember their names.
But here's what's lost when context disappears. These children's names, their ages, where they came from, whether they were siblings or strangers grouped together, whether they were orphaned, abandoned, or surrendered by parents who couldn't care for them, whether they stayed together or were separated after this photograph, whether they found stable homes or spent years moving between placements, whether they survived childhood. All of that is gone. Not because records didn't exist. Somewhere, someone wrote these children's names in a ledger. But because that ledger is lost, or filed separately from this photograph, or was never considered worth preserving, the photograph survived. The story didn't. This is the 5th photograph in this series. Each one shows people who were documented, but incompletely, in ways that preserve their image but erase their context. The first showed someone who fell out of census records. The second showed children used as reform evidence. The third showed people cataloged as colonial specimens. The fourth showed relationships the archive sanitized. This one shows children whose names and stories were severed from their image. Different systems, different mechanisms, same result. People frozen in a moment and then forgotten. I can't tell you who these children were. I can't tell you if they were siblings. I can't tell you why their parents aren't in this photograph. I can't tell you what institution, if any, commissioned this portrait. I can't tell you if they stayed together or were separated. I can't tell you if they survived, if they found families, if they were happy. What I can tell you is this: they were photographed formally, carefully, with intention. Someone thought it mattered to preserve their image, but not enough to preserve their names. 3 children, 1 moment, 0 names. The photograph was meant to document them. Instead, it froze them in place and left them there, without parents, without context, without anyone who remembers. The image survives. The story doesn't. Next time, another photograph, another system, another way of being documented, but never fully known.